Bite it, you scum. Bite it, you scum. Bite it, you scum. Bite it, you scum. Yeah, you want me to contribute, but all I've got are words for you. All you want is more and more gluttony, you pig, you whore. Bite it, you scum. Bite it, you scum. Bite it, you scum. Bite it, you scum. One day when the end is near, I'll be laughing at your fear. One day when there is no one who'll be fucking up my fun, no man will, no way. Bite it, you scum. Bite it, you scum. Bite it, you scum. Bite it, you scum. Thanks.
Flying a plane into another building is a little bit impractical. Nobody's got the balls to set off a dirty bomb in the Mall of America. So what do? You kidnap people and cut their heads off, videotape it, and put it up on YouTube. That's the new form of protest, and that's going to get people talking.
There's no more middle class. It's either you have money or you don't have money. That's what I think. The middle class doesn't exist anymore, which it did. You do have or you do not have. The have and the have-nots. So that's what it's coming down to. That's what it is.
What happened?
Morals. Things have changed. And things have changed for the worse. I used to be a trooper, and I remember how people were not afraid. Now everybody's afraid of everything. Money rules. Thieves control. The almighty dollar.
We can either behave like them, like the bad parts of this world, or we can spend all of our time trying to fight against them, but either way we get caught up in the same dance. Or we just try to think about life straight up and just be like, okay, this is real, right here. I didn't become real. I am real. I've always been real. As a kid I was real. This is a big problem in our lives. People think, oh, kids, well, when you have to get real at some point. Fuck that. You are real when you're 5, you're real when you're 7 and 10 and 12. You're real. You might be more real. There's nothing more real than a 5-month-old kid who's just like, oh, I'm just shitting out my ass right now. Oh, I'm just spit up. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm happy. That's just real. That's pure realness right there. He's not wearing the cool hoodie. He's just a kid. He's just real. And I think this idea that children aren't real is nuts. But it's again another aspect of our society that just keeps us always scrambling, trying to get caught up just get back to zero.
I'm a firm believer that this country, as many arms as we have in this country, everybody in this country should be trained to use a firearm and carry one with them at all times. Guess what? You would have no violent crime. You would at first. Then guess what? You'd have a bunch of full cemeteries, but the motherfuckers that can't get along would get on. They'd be gone.
There's still prejudice here. A lot of prejudice here. It's not open prejudice. It's that slap you on your back with one hand and pick your pocket with the other.
The police state is what I hate about it most here. The police state. It's just all set up as a police state. And they got people perfectly trained to go along with it. Can we search your car? Sure. Can you take your shoes off? You want to get on the plane? Take your shoes off. Okay, great. They're...
I feel the state of America is, commercial. It's commercial. It's something that's cookie cut. Yeah, this is what you do. You go to work every day, work a third of your life away, pay half your pay to the government, 4 out of every day. 4 out of every day. You get a wife of the same race or the same ethnic thing or the same. I mean, it's cookie cutter. This is what you do, and this is what you don't do. Yeah, and I just feel that it's very unoriginal. You know, a lot of it yeah, I worship the devil. My devil comes from inside of me and people like me.
People who have been very repressed and very angry at themselves have also created
regardless of the culture or situation.
Take, for instance, like Van Gogh, who had just who knows exactly what his hang-ups were,
Forcing yourself to look at it
to like actually cut off your ear and nail it to your wannabe girlfriend. It's just.
Are you saying repression is good for art?
I don't know if it's good for art.
The first thing we do when we take a breath on this earth is scream out loud. That's what we're for, man. We're human beings, you know? So no, of course it's a natural right. The First Amendment says, Congress, you're forbidden from restricting the natural right of people to communicate among themselves, to assemble peaceably, to be free. You know, that's just one small part of what it means to own yourself, to be a free human being.
I think there is too much free speech, and that's going to sound crazy, but I'm sick of hate. You know, I'm sick of the fact that we can slander people, we can attack them, we can literally destroy lives with words, and I think it's damaging, and I don't think it's okay to step in and destroy someone's life with words, because words do hurt.
I think it's more of an assumed freedom. But there's freedom of speech, of course. I mean, you know, I can say fuck the president and nobody's going to attack me or anything right now, but put me in jail, but...
So what? What are you going to do, put me in prison? I've been in prison. Kill me? Bye, you know, I mean, what the fuck? I'm just a little grain of sand in the vastness of the universe. That's what I learned on acid. Live, die. It's just two parts of existence, you know?
No, I think there's. I think the encumbrance there is there's not enough good speech, and I think we're just overwhelmed by a lot of talking heads that have particular agendas that are in conflict with each other for whatever they think is important. And I think there's just not enough sincere speech. And I think we need more of that.
Short of yelling fire in a crowded theater, I think the trouble with America is there's not enough free speech. It's not the people that are speaking is the problem, it's the people who aren't listening is the problem. It's the deafness of America. It isn't a speech problem, it's a hearing problem.
Well, that's the old thing, isn't it, about crying fire in a crowded theatre. I think free speech functions when you get a truly free people. And a free person is only somebody who knows themselves well enough not to yell fire in a crowded theatre. So are there limits to free speech? Yes, of course there are. But I think as a group of people become more responsible, socially responsible and personally responsible, they are able to move speech into, in a sense, that which is unspoken. In other words, to explore the mystery. Often mystics talk about the mystical experience as being ineffable. In other words, there are no words for it. But part of, I think, what a truly free person can do is they can start finding words for things that have never had words. side to them before we start to understand the nature of the transcendent reality and to express it into words.
Yeah. Well, that's the big unknown. Of course, the things that you can't answer easily are probably the most important things, like love and faith and whatever. But I think art is a way of presenting an aspect of life, because it doesn't come out of life, it's part of life, in a way that one person can share an experience with another so totally that it's as intimate as intimacy itself. But it's beyond physicality. And I think it touches the spirit or soul of consciousness rather than comforting us like comfort food or
doesn't mean this is art. It looks good. It has aesthetic properties. It matches the painting. You know, people say you should do art to match their couch. I created something I could fuck myself with that matched my painting. It happens.
Art can be an escape from reality. It can be a reflection of reality. It can be part of the reality itself. It's not the producing of the art. It's the reasoning behind the production. Is the person doing this because they're trying to escape from something else? Is the person doing this because they have seen something and they're looking to contribute? It's the same thing, you know, if we make that comparison with somebody going online, it's the same thing. Why are they going online? Is there a productive reason for going online? Or is it escapism? Is it predatory? You know, what's the reason for what they're doing?
Person is obsessed with predation, and because they want to feel that way, they only see the reports of problems, even though the problems, you know, are less than 1% of what's out there. There are people who are passionate about, constraining others, about making sure people can't do what they want to do. Some of them are Puritans.
But I think that art shouldn't be elitist. We should be surrounded by things that are beautiful and stunning, and basically lift our consciousness to a higher degree, to make us more aware of how wonderful life is, how wonderful we are, and the fact that we can only feel good when we're doing something good for other people and ourselves in an unselfish way.
I think self-expression is mandatory, and I guess, you know, you'd call any kind of self-expression art. I think that's why kids are doing things like shooting at school and beating up other kids and fighting because they have no outlet for their emotions or things like that.
And the teacher was up at the blackboard talking about color, and I was sitting in the back row, as usual, in the corner, the left-hand corner, of course. And she said, "Yellow is a bad color," and I went, "Why?" And she wheeled around and pointed at me and said, "Watch him, he's an artist." And everybody turned and looked at me. And I thought, I'm an artist. I am, actually, yes, because I want to know why.
An artist is a creative individual that suffers from a need to express themselves, regardless of the culture or situation that they find themselves in.
People don't understand. They think because of our culture, you have to paint or draw or make movies, videos, write scripts, whatever the fuck, to be creative. But artists, scientists, creative is not just making something. Creativity is looking at that stove over there every day and forcing yourself to look at it in a different way. People go on autopilot with their lives. Their lives go by and they're like, is that it?
I think that probably people who beat their children are angry at themselves, but we often hit those who are within arm's reach, and that's our families. People who beat their children are angry with themselves, and they're angry with themselves because they're not doing what they want to do. I don't know what that is, so that's what I suspect. So I would say music is an expression. I've often said that music is a form of communication that almost certainly predates language. So obviously it's been around forever and ever. I imagine that design and visual art also predates language. I would imagine that people would put things, line things up, rocks or sticks, or it's just because they're translating, they're seeing something and they're able to recreate it. I mean, music artists are translators ultimately. Like you're making a movie right now, and you said to me earlier, can I film? Because I like the idea of just filming without it being an interview, because the conversation quite often is whatever, it goes into a different direction. But what it really reveals is that what you're trying to capture is your translation of what you see, what you think, what you hear.
Cuckoo is a reference here that was on the blackboard. Cuckoo, in French anyway, and other languages, but most especially in French, means insane. And the strange thing is that in this morgue there were diagrams on the blackboard of I believe they're knee joints, but this looks like a fish, and I respond to what I'm doing. When I took this photograph, there was an enormous amount of light through this huge window of this old building, and the light created this crazy shadow of a face. And all these, some scratches, modifications, all this kinds of shapes I make because I make the print, and the finished photograph is basically the result of many months of planning and researching, letter writing, email writing, to get permission to make what I do.
I mean, ultimately, when I make music, like I'm hearing something out there in the world, and then when I play a guitar, I'm trying to say, here's what I'm hearing. Like I'm going to filter it and put it into a distilled version for you. If I'm an artist, like photographer, like a photo is like just take a picture, but if you start thinking about what makes a great photo, it's because a photographer sees the composition of something. A photographer sees it and is able to capture it, distill it, and say, here's what I saw. Here's what I saw. So there's that kind of pass-through aspect of it. It's translation. And I think that most people, or all people, there's something that they are like made to translate. But I think quite often, again, because of the structure of our society, because of the idea that making money is the primary goal, that quite often that which they are built to translate, like that's what they are built to do, is suffocated by what they think they're supposed to be doing in terms of making money or making a living.
But not all of my work sells, because a lot of my work is about references that are harder to take. This is called Bad Student, and it was made in Europe. And what happened is that I found this incredible mannequin in a flea market in a major city. And from that I got this idea of putting a severed human head on, because it had no head. And so when I found this particular head in a morgue, I worked with a makeup artist. She also does hairstyling, and she brought a wig, and the wig was very essential. And it's about the quality of passion that very often is gone in education, especially in this country. I think we're a commercial corporate society now. We're not a society of individuals. We're a society of people who are not true entrepreneurs. They're entrepreneurs in a very, very commercial vein. And so this image is about this kind of deadening of time, that we just don't get it.
And no matter what your political affiliation is, I mean, anybody can understand that. When you take the politics out of the equation, you can definitely understand that.
We have some problems I think we could address in our democracy.
Anybody can be president if you're this age, and then later I found out, you gotta have $3 million to put it on the ballot.
It seems to me the level of political discourse in our public life today is very disappointing. The candidates are compelled by their sense of vulnerability. If they say the wrong thing, they have to hold back and be very careful what they say. And they have to have something to say every day and have quick answers to any problem. I would love to hear a candidate say, I don't know. But that would apparently be crippling. You can't admit you don't know. But that's ridiculous, you see.
We have the best political system that money can buy. If you don't believe me, buy your own politician and find out. Because the only thing a politician has to offer is jawbone. Does he keep his word? Have you ever met one that kept his damn word? They're all liars. They're all pigs feeding at the public trough, and guess what? We're paying for the fucking food. Once we figure out that we don't really need what they're doing for us all that much, they're in deep shit. Okay, next.
When things that should work don't work, that's the work of all the governors, or all these governors. And the idea behind that is that the government largely is acting on behalf of the corporations. So to keep the power in the hands of those corporations, they will undermine things that could be just naturally could work out.
The very first thing they teach you in political science, any government that does not perpetuate it, so that does not go after the people to convince them that they cannot function without government, is doomed for failure, and that's true.
And this is the idea of it. The idea that government will always trip things up, because if it could just go smoothly, then they'd have nothing to do, and there'd be no way to profit on it, because people would just, okay, I'm going to grow some food. You want to buy the food? You want to trade me? Like these. I'm not talking about a utopian existence. I'm just talking about like reasonable. Like, why does everything have to be so hard?
I mean, we're basically it's a question of what false Christian would you like to have running the country. They're all the same, unless we get someone up there who's going to say, all right, as of tomorrow, we're going to slash the world population by 2/3. We're no longer going to use oil for energy, and basically we're going to force everyone to return to their countries of origin.
Well, they say politics and religion, you should keep them apart.
I don't know, I think politics is some people's morality. I think some people that don't have necessarily religious beliefs almost use politics as like their religious beliefs and their version of morality.
The hiding in religion, the using religion to justify behaviors that are archaic and primitive is so astonishing to me it's mind-boggling. The right-wing talk show people and their ideologues have bombarded America with what could really only be called fascist ideology. We've become a fascist corporate state, and Americans continue to wrap themselves in the flag and go to church every Sunday in their segregated churches, pretending like they're God's chosen people. And anytime you get an armed culture who have strong religious views and are militarily strong, I'd say to the rest of the world, watch out.
Do you think we're in any kind of religious war right now in the United States?
Absolutely.
Some would call it a cultural war.
Well, I would say there's probably both, but in terms of a religious war, I've seen that the fundamentalist Christians have found that if they pull together, that they actually do have great political power, and over the last 20 years or so have actually had an agenda to try to take over, as it were, certain political offices.
So you know what, if there was an atheist that believed many things that I believed in and was able to represent my country in a way that I was comfortable with, I'm going to go ahead and vote for him. And I would hope that an atheist would do the same. If there was a Christian that believed, and had the same values, then why not vote for them? It's more on issues, I think. But I do think it's important to vote as a religious person.
But you have to make, exceptions. Like, sure, I'd rather have someone who wasn't God obsessed. But then again, I'd rather vote for a Christian who was, more liberal than an atheist who was a fascist.
America has given me a great place to grow up and do what I do, and there are beautiful parts of America that are full of beautiful people, and what's best about America is probably its soul of a lot of its people, but we're obviously a melting pot, nation, and so we're separating ourselves. Our government is, they can tell you anything. They could shove everything at you. I don't know. I suppose the worst part is the government, the soul, and the destruction of soul, the government. But I don't vote. I don't do anything to change it. So that's that's one of the reasons why I'm not politically minded. I'm not one of those people that can really bitch about a whole lot. I'm not in that place to do it. So.
In a democracy, a person's vote is their greatest responsibility. That's what people live for, die for, and it's our chance to basically change the government and be heard. And it's a precious thing. Anyone who doesn't vote is, for me, a very, very sad individual.
I'm done voting. Voting's for suckers. Democracy is for losers. It is the god that failed, and it's no way to secure liberty, as we can all see just by...
As soon as I feel comfortable voting for is in office, I will. And so, this is that simple.
Wayne, do you vote?
Do I vote? No.
Why not?
Well, I don't think any of the candidates interest me, and they all seem to be part of the same party, except they're sponsored by different people.
Vote? It's this right that we have that lots of people around the world don't have, and it's good to use that. There's lots of people who die actually fighting for the right to vote. So it's uncouth at best to not, walk down to the polling place and vote.
The vote in America doesn't recognize, they almost sequestered us out of the voting system. We can vote, but I don't.
I don't vote. My vote doesn't count.
Why?
I think that the presidency is already ordained. It's already planned out, and I think that the run for presidency is a way to gain money.
part of this, the modern way they control people. The young thing, it doesn't mean anything to vote. I'll tell you one thing, every Republican votes in every election. Republicans are about 24% of the population. But they win these things because they all vote. Nobody fools them into thinking they'll vote. Doesn't mean anything. All the people who felt like us voted. A Republican could never get it off.
I think it's moral to vote in self-defense from your neighbors who are attempting to aggress against you. I think it's immoral to vote to attempt to choose who should be your neighbor's ruler.
It's political. Everything is political. See, that's the thing. Like this country, like think about it like this. You have like two dominant political parties that people talk about, the Republicans and the Democrats. But ultimately, they are not the party that has been responsible for the American, like what's happened in this country culturally. The apathetic party is that party. That's who has really dominated our politics. That's how really short-sighted, like small-minded people get into control of vastly powerful like instruments like the government, like the Republican.
Only when you've got a crisis, people tend to come together. Only when it's to the point of, how shall I say it, things have got to the point where there's a point of no return that people come together. We're going to see some times when, and they're coming, when it's coming back to that. It's not going to be a Republican, Democrat Party. It's going to be we the people. And right now, the we the people, we're ignored. We are ignored.
It's like you don't think doctrines make inspiration.
Look, I'm a revolutionary because I can do all the things that I want to do. I can write the way I want to write.
It is possible to spread a revolution, but to say you are a revolution and not have the courage to go out and speed of change is just silly. I mean, it's like I write about it.
Deny them the benefit of the doubt. Deny them.
Revolution is always possible. I mean, it's a matter of people organizing and overthrowing the government. But there's no doing it without struggle and organization and effort and discipline. That's, you always have a revolution. You just got to do it. You can't do it by having a TV program. You know, you can't have it by making a movie or something. You know, the revolution is people getting together and fighting the government, you know, head on.
I already said it's not possible until we decide to work together. I don't see how. I think about all the anti-war protests and the demonstrations that I've been to, and I think about just how disheartening they are. At the end of the day, you look at a couple hundred kids all dressed in black with fucking ski masks on and Che shirts throwing bricks through Starbucks windows. You know what I mean? Fuck, it's not a fucking revolution. It's a display. It's a game that they almost prefer us to play.
It's like the revolutions generally knock down the power structure, but they dissipate their energy in doing so, and then it sets up a power vacuum of sorts. It's like if you have a counter-revolution coming in and trying to bring in some ideas which are old and some ideas which are new. It's like when the revolutionaries generally want to wipe the slate clean.
Everyone's just so apathetic nowadays.
I think there's an inherent problem with a violent overthrow of the government, because what you end up having is one group of thugs out, the next group of thugs in. And
Right.
Either way, the guys with the glasses and the books under their arms get shot first. So really, I think that if the 20th century proved anything, it's that, far-reaching political ideals don't work, so you can't identify yourself as a communist or an anarchist or a fascist. And beyond that, it doesn't all, the whole let's blow up the fucking White House and take things over doesn't work.
the idea that they could. I don't think that they even know what a revolution is. I mean, what do they know? The closest thing they know to a revolution is buying something with shape of Vera's face on it to wear around their head or something. That's as close as they get, man.
And the American Revolution. And that worked to a certain extent, given the times. But I think the most successful revolutions are like the Gandhi sort of Indian revolutions, the peaceful revolutions, where you just shut everything down.
Gandhi may have personally been nonviolent, but Gandhi's revolution killed how many hundreds of thousands?
This is true.
All right.
This is true.
So, the person who says, "Go out, do this," okay, but doesn't do themselves, may claim to be nonviolent, but is still responsible for the violence. Responsibility.
The federal government certainly doesn't have much respect for the Constitution as I believe it should be interpreted. I think if we actually followed the Constitution, you'd have a radical change in society for the better.
The people wake up. They fucking wake up. They get pissed off. They get uncomfortable. They start to get that fucking feeling in their stomach of like, we gotta fucking do something. Things are desperate, you know, and like overcome their fucking fears. There's this fucking comfortability of like, you know, I'm afraid, you know, I'm just gonna sit here because if I go out there and do something, I might get, you know, punished, or I might get, you know, my finger wagged in my face, or you know, something like that. It's like,
people don't want confrontation. I mean, I know a lot of people that go out of their way to keep things like political debate out of their lives and religious debate out of their lives because they're afraid of confrontation. And that's just with their neighbor can't do anything, you know. What's he gonna do, let his dog shit on their lawn? Like, and when you talk about confrontation with the government, then you're up against a legitimate enemy, and we've seen what they've done before, you know, to people like the Black Panther Party, Abby Hoffman. Like, there's just been a million different groups and individuals that have stood up against the government, either collectively or by themselves, and some of them end up fucking dead, you know, or just locked in a prison. Make their lives hell. And so it's a force. It's a true force that a bunch of fucking little punk rock kids in San Francisco aren't going to be able to fight on their own just because there's a couple thousand people that want revolution and go to Hot Topic to buy their Fidel Castro wristband. Like, I'm sorry, but it's just another market that has opened up and become very popular and very saturated, and it's kind of depressing because it has been marketed to our generation.
Revolution, you know, as Chairman Mao said, is not a dinner party. It's a struggle between one class and another for control of the social system.
So when you guys tried to...
If you had a revolution here, you would have to throw out the capitalists, you'd have to assassinate the bankers, you'd have to line the Republicans up against the wall. It wouldn't be nothing nice. You'd have to put Karl Rove's head on a pike, you know?
Well, of course, it entirely depends on how you define revolution. I think revolution was a way in which things were handled in the past. And I'd like to think at this point that we don't need revolutions. In other words, we don't need to turn everything upside down and start again like the French Revolution. Or, you know, what we really need is an evolution from where we are at this particular point. So the stuff which we haven't found useful drops away, and what we find useful we can apply to the making of a new world. So no, not revolution really, but evolution from where we are now. And hopefully, you know, each of us have learned in our own ways that you can't solve problems through violence, you know, and that by being mean to other people, you discovered that it's not a good life strategy. And, you know, all the things that one discovers in the course of a life of how to behave in a way that one can achieve the maximum. You without being screwed over by anyone else.
I've infiltrated many radical organizations and so forth, and I've infiltrated the Covenant Sword and Arm of the Lord. I've infiltrated. I wasn't an actual member, but I deals with the Bloods, the Crips, the Invisible Empire, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, the Aryan Nation, the Hells Angels, the Banditos, the Oklahoma Outlaws, different organizations and so forth. And there are a lot of people that have agendas, but most of these people have an agenda, and the bottom line is usually the bottom line. Usually they're into making money or getting ahead or getting what they want in the world more than they are about trying to overthrow the government and so forth.
And the worst part, the capitalist system, the warmongers, television programs, the seamless blanket of oppression they put around the whole populace to wall them off.
What about capitalism?
The term capitalism means too many different things. It's real hard to talk about. In one sense, capitalism is just about freedom of choice, and then people get together to form something called a government to create some checks and balances. In that sense, the internet and capitalism are natural complements. However, to some people, capitalism means something different. And some of those definitions aren't as benign, but it's just so hard to talk about because it means so many different things.
Yeah, there's definitely bad aspects. Capitalism is not perfect by any means. It's just better than using the state. Ultimately, although this is obviously an oversimplification, but you basically have two means of getting goods and services to people. There's prices, and then there's rationing. There's free market forces, and then there's central planning, and one works and the other doesn't. And much as I complain about the richest people in America, most of the poorest people in America have a standard of living higher than the millionaires and even billionaires of 4 or 5 generations ago. So.
I don't know the actual definitions of these things, so I wouldn't say capitalism. Certainly I would say that in my lifetime, in my estimation, the way capitalism has been practiced in this culture, I would say it is a deeply diseased system. I don't know if it's a cancer or not. Cancer at the moment is apparently incurable. So if I was to pass it as cancer, then I might think, well, then it's hopeless. I'm pretty hopeful.
With the society of wealth and all that, I guess capitalism has caused a lot of problems with people the poor people are free to use that to any extent, but it seems like they still, the rich folks still end up with the power somehow, using capitalism.
Money always goes back to money, doesn't it?
It seems like it, yeah.
How do you feel about capitalism?
I think it's something that, at this point, it can be a vicious beast that can ruin the world, or it can be something that can be controlled. To me, it seems likely that unchecked, you're going to basically have a sort of aristocratic robber baron society, just inherently. That's just what's going to happen. But if you have certain regulations and the people in control aren't the ones with all the money, then I don't think capitalism is just a market. That's all it is. It's just a market. So the idea itself, markets and so forth, the trading of goods and services for money, is not necessarily evil. It's just used in a very evil, corrupt manner.
I think drug dealing is a good example of capitalism. Like the supply and demand theory. I think that works, and it's totally illegal. But some people have to make a living that way.
Wasn't in a neighborhood,
the opportunities are better for you than it would be for me.
You're a white man. This band always been for that, from what I've heard, what I've read and everything, you go to county, because I was with the church, we go to county jail like on the holidays and everything. All these black boys, hey, the white folks doing them, I mean, they in jail too, but 80% of them is black. And they're all young right now, just going, you know.
From 18
you know,
to 26, somewhere along there.
Yeah, that's all we go pray for them.
They're in jail now.
What is that? What have they did? They ain't been in no schools. They haven't did anything.
He on the corner, he's selling drugs.
Selling drugs?
Because he's keeping his own people
See what
down.
it is? What it is, they have them to sell the big folks. They don't get them. They don't get them. They get these little dudes out there, give them $10 or $12, give them a pair of Nike gym shoes, and they take a chance on going to jail selling them drugs. That's what they be doing.
So it ain't a class war, it's a race war.
It's a race war.
It's
It's definitely a
always
race war.
going to be one here. See, who controls the money? Who controls the money controls everything. I don't care how you put it or how you say it. He who controls the money controls everything.
White folks control the money.
So poor white folks got it better than poor black folks.
Hell yeah.
They got much better. They got a little bit better chance.
They got it better.
That's not saying that, but they got a little bit better chance.
Well, a poor black, a white person, another white person, well-to-do, they'll help them. But a poor black person, a middle-class black person, they don't want to be bothered with them. They don't want to be bothered with their own folks.
Once you get out of Dodge, let's go.
They don't want, once they accumulate their higher education, or they doing good, or they got a good job, they don't want to be bothered with other black folks, so they think that
it's gradually changing. It's a slow process. It took us 200 years to get to this point. It may take another 100 years to get to the next point. It's slowly turn around, slowly but gradually changing. It's not an overnight
ain't no
process.
reflection on y'all,
That's
you
going to
know,
happen.
I'm just talking.
Oh,
we're still driven, the society in this country especially, is driven to existence and in making a living. And I think that if things were really, capitalism is great, it works, but it has to work with compassion and putting people first and not profits first. And I think hopefully someday that may happen here.
There's only one revolution I'm about, and that's what this is representing as a spiritual revolution, not a revolution of people's minds and thinking and governments and all this. There's only one revolution. That's a spiritual revolution, and that's what I'm about.
Sorry, John Tripper?
I'm a warrior sage of the spirit. And that's the only change.
I'm coming out.
Any other kind of social change or governmental change, you know what that's nothing. But if there's a change of consciousness, if there's a raising of consciousness to the spiritual platform, that's the only thing. That's the revolution.
God is not
It goes both
out
ways.
to
When
get you.
I first seen it, I
He's
thought of it as more the evil.
you know, like the God
sin
that
is
I
powerful.
love
It
is
destroys.
for you.
But then
He's
again,
trying
church
to reach you. He's trying to love you. He's even pursuing a relationship with you. God not.
I think religion in general gives us a sense of values. Not that you necessarily have to be religious to have values, but those morals and those values came from somewhere. And I think a lot of that has to do with many of the religious beliefs that have been passed down, especially within our country. You know, one of the reasons that people came to this country was for religious freedom. And I know there's a lot of flaws in that, and some bad things happen with that.
If someone feels that they have to have a belief in a God so that they don't rob, break, kill, steal, and generally do evil things, then I certainly wasn't to go right on believing in a God if that's the only basis for their moral code. If they think, and I've heard many people say, well, without a belief in God, people would just go out and murder each other. Well, I wouldn't, and no other atheists I know would, and there are very few born-again atheists on death row. And if the person making the statement truly believes that, then I think that person, for our own safety's sake, should go right on believing in a God.
Well, they say praying, I mean, even if you don't believe in the same God that everybody else does, they say that it can make you feel better and it can fix your immune system and things like that. Yeah, I think it's just all positive thinking.
I think praying is like a healthy
meditation.
Yeah, it's like a selfish act, but it's a healthy selfish act, as opposed to like, alcoholism, which is a very unhealthy selfish act. But yeah, I mean, the whole God thing is like, when you look at the void that God fills, the explanations people need, most of those explanations have already been more than satisfactorily answered by modern science. I think it's just people want something other than the void of existence, because they're not excited by their lives enough. They're not excited.
It scares people to look up at the sky and go, what are we doing here?
Yeah, their lives have become they've become so disenchanted with it, and it's just so menial and tedious and boring that they've got to think there's something else. I'm gonna die and it's gonna be this bitchin' ass heaven I'm in. Now I'm gonna have this great life next time because this one sucks. So I think that's why they start reaching out like, oh yes, there's gotta be an afterlife.
Well, it calms them down.
Because
if not, they would lose their minds trying to think of what's out there.
Free will, the idea of free will, which they always tell me, because I'm around a lot of born-again Christians, that free will, God gives you the ultimate choice. He loves you so much, he gives you the ultimate choice. I always say, it doesn't seem like a choice to me. It seems like a coercion, like a carjacking. If I tell you, you can eat, you've got a choice. You can love me, or you can burn in hell for eternity. That doesn't seem like a choice to me.
And Christianity is kind of the root of all human suffering and failure in this world. I mean, the West is the way it is today because of Christianity. Everything that is, you want to get into current events, everything that is happening right now is because of Christianity, flat out. So burning churches and scaring the living shit out of Christians and reminding them that they don't have every last man, woman, and child in their clutches is pretty important.
Is there a religious war going on in the United States?
Some people call it the culture wars, but here at the museum we are engaging the culture, not in what we would call a battle, but maybe the more, maybe generic term is engaging the culture to think seriously about biblical truths from Genesis to Revelation. But you won't see us out there agitating for people to say you've got to believe in the book of Genesis. It's up to their own volition.
So it's more of a cultural wars than a religious wars.
Yes, I don't even like the word culture wars sometimes, but it's become such a part of our culture nowadays that we just kind of use that as a fallback term.
I do think that Christianity has become a culture in many ways and less a relationship or a lifestyle, but a culture. We have all these things that we say are acceptable. We have our own way of speaking. We have all these things. And I think anytime you have a culture, you're dividing. You're separating yourself from others, and you're almost becoming elite, and you're in the cool club. And I think that unfortunately through that, we have kind of created that thing by
there's two religions in the world. A lot of people think there's 1,000 or 200 or something. There's really two. There's what I would refer to as God's religion, and there's man's religion. And they're quite easy to tell apart. The characteristic of man's religion is just obvious. Even my dog understands man's religion. You do good, you get rewarded. You do bad, you get your lights punched out. That's the essence of human religion. You do good because you want to get rewards, and the more good you do, the more rewards you get. You do bad, then you cower because punishment is inevitable. God's religion is so different from that, I don't think any human being would have ever thought of it.
Well, God is not a big hairy man that lives in the heavens, although sometimes that might be an interesting proposition. However, I think God is more the higher self. If you look at it in Jungian terms, it would be your anime, the ego, trying to reach for the process of individuation.
But when we deal with social problems, I think man has proven himself quite inept at solving social problems, and we seem to just dig the pit deeper with time. We've tried lots of things. We've tried eugenics to build a superior human being through selective breeding to come up with a master race. Hey, that all grew out of scientific knowledge. Sir Galton was the grandson or nephew of Charles Darwin. He was the father of eugenics. Germany used these concepts to kill Jews and anyone else that they thought represented an inferior race. This is knowledge which is harmful. And knowledge completely unbridled by God's word that just runs off on its own, I think just leads to dead ends. And that's why we do such a poor job with social problems.
Oh, there's been more people that's been horrendously tortured in the name of religion, the traditions of man. We have done the most insane, heinous crimes. I mean, come on, think about it. In the name of religion, to burn somebody at a stake, alive? Come on, man. In the name of Christ, Jesus. In the name of God. Because they were pronounced witches.
I think the greatest weapon the devil has against God is Christians. I think that he is able to use these mean people to distract them from him. And because I do believe in Satan.
But the question I often ask myself is however much I dislike Christianity as a religious expression, it's probably a lot better than having people running wild. It's a rung, in other words, in a ladder. Yeah, I didn't find the Russian experiment, the Soviet experiment, had any redeeming virtues that I could see whatsoever, apart from being able to beat people into stealing hydrogen bomb secrets. So I don't think atheism as a social system works. People do need to have something to believe in, but and probably being pretty undisciplined animals on the whole, they need to be whipped, until they can't stand it anymore, and then at some point they start asking the deeper question. And that's really when it starts. Suffering is actually, it seems to be an interesting way, but suffering does do a lot of good for people. It develops compassion, it develops a depth of understanding of self, and often leads to, a transcendent experience of one sort or another. You can do
it. First off, people always cite Stalin because he outlawed religion, and so he's the most evil atheist of the 20th century, which is, I'm not talking about outlawing religion, I'm just saying skeptical inquiry, instead of just saying, yeah, ghosts exist and the baby Jesus is out there, just say, why don't you just be a little more skeptical? I think skeptical thought is up there with critical thinking. I'd say I would self-describe myself as a skeptic, and I think that's what I think would be healthier. Skeptics don't strap bombs themselves and blow up buildings.
I'm frequently asked, when did I become an atheist? Well, in reflection, I was born an atheist. You were born an atheist. Everyone's born an atheist. A more correct question is, when did the God talk get poured into your dear little head? I've been asked how I know the Bible so well, and I say because of 12 perfect years of Sunday school attendance. And say, well, why do you not believe in it? And I say, because of 12 perfect years of Sunday school attendance.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who don't believe in anything. They believe in themselves. Like, for instance, I'm one of those people. I'm not a pipe carrier. I don't go to Sundances. I don't go to Sweat Lodge, every weekend. I don't go to NAC meetings. I believe in myself. So I was taught to take care of yourself, believe in yourself. And, if you want things to happen, you just focus on what you want to do in your life and go do it. And everything else will fall in place.
spiritual. My spirituality comes, from that hell, Satan, Milton's Paradise Lost, the tragic history of mankind, the tragic hero, the protagonist.
What's your religion?
I'm Satanist. I'm not atheist. I worship the devil. And the devil meaning something that exists inside me that I want.
So what's the difference, do you think, between religion and spirituality?
It depends on who you talk to. The word religion means a lot of things. Spirituality means a lot of things too. I think it was Hillel who said the essence of Judaism is basically the notion that you should love your neighbor and treat people like they want to be treated. That's the core of Judaism and a core value of pretty much any world religion.
Okay. I think the difference between religion and spirituality, for me, I think that religion is more focused. Like for me, religion goes like you're Christian or you're Mormon or something like that. And I think spirituality is something that's a little bit more like Oprah style, whatever you want to believe. If you want to believe a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you can kind of go with a little bit of everything instead of just saying, well, I am Christian or I am that. So that's what I think the difference is.
We're not, we're not going around talking about a god or gods that are human in form, have personalities, have all the petty bullshit that goes along with the decaying meat sacks that is humanity. It's more of recognizing that there is a greater something. What that is, we don't necessarily know. I tend to call it a vibration. You can call it like the collective unconscious or the Akashic record, but there is something that is beyond just this fucking flesh. You go out to the desert, you go out to the forest, you look at the trees, you look at the ocean crashing on the rocks, and there's definitely something out there. You can call it holy, you can call it unholy, whatever you want, but it's something spiritual. It's something that we don't necessarily know and can't put a finger on it, but we understand that it's there. It's that same part of that is the same intrinsic fear that humans have when they see the skeletons, be it of an animal or a person. You look at it and you have this shiver that kind of goes up your spine.
Along those lines, just because we acknowledge an energy of the universe does not mean that we worship it. That does not mean that we put ourselves beneath it. We are one with it. We are a part of it. We are all involved in that same continuum.
So are you a religious person? I've been through all these ideas in my head back and forth of religion and is there a right religion for me? And I grew up in a Christian family, and then my dad would come home and beat the kids and get drunk and stuff like that. So I've been torn between all that. I've read some stuff in the Bible, and the Bible there's some positive stuff in a few chapters of the Bible. I mean, there's some good stuff in the satanic literature or any other. I'll pull pieces from different things to kind of make my own, ideas about all this stuff. I think the American Indians had some really cool ideas. The Buddhists have some really cool ideas about just peaceful living,
Wow, you start thinking and shit, nah, this can't be true, right? But then you start thinking like, what if you did? What if you died and you go to heaven? What if you died and you go to heaven? Fuck, man, I thought it was all bullshit, and I still fucking have an inkling of suspicion that it is, but I had that doubt, man. I had that doubt. I've always kind of had that doubt. Like I always said, better be safe than sorry, right? But then they come out with, you can't worship two gods, right? Like, wow, you're just like, can I still fucking do a line here and there? What? And then I'm like, well, what is a sin? It's like, a sin is denying yourself, right? Or is that a penance, or is that a respect? Or are we supposed to whip ourselves, or because we whip ourselves to shit anyway? I don't know if you're like me, but we beat ourselves up. I mean, like, I fucking, am I good or am I bad? Am I good? I just, honestly, it's so much easier to be bad than try to be good. And my bad's not that bad, but I'm probably like the most fucking, I think about Satan all the time, man. And I go, fuck, man, you know, I was like, because I got shot, and I was like, fuck, man, I'm gonna go to hell or what? It's like, I was waiting, and I didn't get that light at the end of the tunnel. You know, like, I got terror, you know?
Why did you feel like you were dying?
I got terror. I just was terrified, like, I ain't gonna front. Like, at first I was like this, right? Then I did kind of get terror, but it was a weird terror, like, you're resigned, you know, whatever happens. I've come this far, and it's not up to me from here, right? And you're like, I can't control things from here, right? Like, if I have to burn 1,000,000 years, or if I have to go to, you know, feed the donkeys for Jesus' tracks or something, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what to expect if there is a heaven, right? Or what if I just die, you know? Which is even, that's easy though, but it's like, it's hard to just want to die. I don't want to die, I want to live. Yeah.
If you divorce yourselves from religion and you really look at how nature works, there really are no laws other than the laws of nature. And if you are really acting in accordance with your true nature, then that is your moral compass. It's when you kind of like go outside of your true nature that you're not being true to yourself, that you're doing things that are not natural for you, like, you know, I don't know, any number of like bizarre and weird things that a lot of religions require of you. Those aren't really true to an individual's natures, but a lot of times serve the organization rather than the spirit. And I think those are the wrong things.
I think if people would just love, I think Christianity in a nutshell is this: to love God and to love people. And if we would come back to that, and of course, you know, our tendency there is, we know that's true. Very few people would argue with that statement. Love God, love people. You might find a few that argue with the love God part, but very few would argue with loving people. Yet we don't do it. And again, that's that inner struggle there. If we would just give in to the love and love God and love people in every action that we do and everything that we say, then I think it would be a much better world.
Have a good life. It's all about having a good life, because that's all we have is this life here and now. You know, some people believe in reincarnation. You know, my father believed that there was an energy, you know, and the body dies, but the spirit never dies. It goes on, and either, you know, whether you be reborn or you come back, the energy just gets transformed into something else. So those are some of the things that I think are good, you know.
So either we're looking for something or somebody that knows more than we do, or we're hoping that somebody or something that knows more than we do will come along and save us. Or in a more deeply occulted way, to find out the true meaning of life and why we're here and the purpose of it. Because it's certainly more than just getting up and going to work and having babies and dying. One doesn't have to be spiritual, I think, to get to that point. Realizing there must be something more to life than what we're told. And once you start asking those questions, you start wanting to explore them through art as well, I think, whatever your art is. I'm not that interested in other people's reaction to my art. I don't really go out of my way to exhibit. I really do it for my own benefit. Very selfish.
Biggest prejudice in the world is not racial prejudice.
It's not black against white or brown against white or yellow against white or against each other or whatever. It is fucking cultural prejudice. It is cultural prejudice. You know,
it's just all one. Why? When you divide, you separate. When you put a label on it, you're dividing yourself. You're not including all people.
If you get people as individuals by themselves, they're marvelous people.
Oh, the best thing about America is that, you know, we don't have a democracy and they say, quote unquote, you know, we're free, but, you know, by certain guidelines.
It seems though that when you get large groups of people combined together, they lose their humanity.
It's really difficult to think of worse things about America. America is a great country. We have tremendous freedom here. You have the ability to be the captain of your ship and the master of your fate. We have freedom in America. We have a country that our citizens are strong enough to go places and defend our freedom. I'm proud to be an American.
That's a long discussion, but we could start with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is actually the beginning of the discussion. You're probably too young to remember when we had a constitution and rule of law, but the Bill of Rights enumerates some important human rights, like the freedom to associate, freedom of religion and speech. Those are pretty good.
Aren't you too young to remember that as well?
We're one of the few countries in the fucking world that tries to legislate morality. I mean, come on, morality is what you learn at your grandma's knee. You learn you to treat people the way you want to be treated.
And the best thing, black people, African American culture, music, dance, poetry, you know, the creativeness of Americans.
And the best thing is we're free. We don't have to wear things over our face to keep men from not seeing us. We don't have to be married to somebody that they pick for us. We can pick who we want to marry. We're free. We can go and come as we please. We just got to abide by the law. That's the best thing about it.
Well, the best thing about America is the incredible feeling of potential that one can do anything. Coming from Europe, the feeling of one can express oneself. You know, if one's canny enough about it in exactly the way one wants to.
I think the best thing about America is that you're free to follow your dreams. And I think the worst thing in America are people who tell you you can't follow your dreams.
Well, I think definitely our freedom is the best thing. We're free to do as we choose.
The best thing, I think, is the Second Amendment, and we have to keep it.
It's a tricky thing. When I think of America, I think of the word God. It's like we need another word.
Any society, when manners goes, the society goes. This country's quickly losing its fucking manners.
Change everything. You wouldn't be dressed like that today if it wasn't for us. We were the original hippies.
Weed's still illegal.
Yeah, but we're still. I got some right here. You want to smoke one?
Yes.
I can smoke one right here.
I would love that.
Illegal, you know. I mean, that's a different world.
It's their world.
We can live in whatever world we want. We can do what we want. We can do what we want.
I'm just one of billions of living beings on this earth. I mean, for all the issues that we are talking about and all the kind of like, you know, you're stressing about these things that you study this and I study this and we think about it doesn't mean a fucking thing, ultimately. You know, like, I mean, right now, in this very moment, like, this entire block could just explode. A crack could open up and drop us in and we'll be just eviscerated. And it won't mean a thing, really, to most of the people in this world. Just most of the people in the world. It won't mean a thing. It will have zero effect on the revolution of this earth. Like the earth will just continue to spin.
brother kissing. He's not gay, but I can't fake it. Want to live so fast. How long will I last? I live from day to day. I watch my brain decay. Letting the current pull you in. Feeling you're all alone. Feel the fire burn within. Death has now begun. I just up the line in the middle and put it backwards.